Hi everyone. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about travel safety tips. As an older woman traveling by myself, there are some additional precautions that we need to make because people are not, you know, there's like 160,000 women and girls kidnapped every year or reported missing every year in the United States. It's something that people don't really recognize or acknowledge or even, mention that this is a big problem in the United States. So, going abroad, it's an additional concern when you have different languages and you have unfamiliar places and unfamiliar cultures. So, when I am traveling inside the United States, so for example, I went to Chicago the other day, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, and a homeless man was harassing me quite a bit. Actually, he got very loud, very vocal, um, just trying to get my attention and trying to, talk to me. And obviously, I'm not the person he should be approaching, right? Um, and so it was very difficult, and it went on for a long time, and he wouldn't go away. So what I did was I ducked into the next store, and the next person that exited the store, I just followed him out and pretended to be with him, and and that got rid of the problem. The homeless man saw that and left me alone from that point forward. So that is one thing I've done frequently. Um, is to when I see a problem, I just find other people and pretend to be with them. So that's when I'm traveling alone, right? And I have found that sometimes when I do that to women, they get a little nervous, they get a little scared. So I just, because they don't know if I'm with, sometimes bad men will have, brainwash some other women into victimizing other women. So it's important, to be cautious of all people if you're a woman. So I do not, saddle up next to women usually. I've learned that, it just makes them nervous. Men, on the other hand, usually don't get too nervous around me. They get usually confused, you know, and they, typically in the past when they've been confused, they quickly figure out what the issue is and they just kind of go along with it. That's been my experience. So if you do run into somebody scary in public, that is one technique I've learned. But when you're on longer trips, there's a lot of tips, and I hope to maybe cover some of them in the upcoming videos. One of them is just traveling light, traveling very light. I buy teeny tiny little toothpaste off of Amazon, so you don't even have to buy the travel size. You can buy a teeny tiny piece and a teeny tiny little one. And even if you're going for a week, those teeny tiny toothpaste will, even if you grab a couple, because usually they sell them in a 50 pack or a 100 pack. They're pretty cheap. Um, just they will actually last quite a while. I would invite you to buy one of the teeny tiny toothpaste on Amazon and try them out before you go on your trip to understand how long one of those tubes will last you. And then you'll understand how many that you need. So they can be very small. And also, I've noticed that the 2 ounce limit on any liquid, that is actually a large amount of liquid. And a lot of times Target and Walmart, they sell these tubs or little Tupperware, whatever you want to call it, for 2 ounces. And that's usually far more than you need. Usually if you're talking about hair oil or lotion, face lotion, a 1 ounce would be plenty, more than plenty, right? Just even like a teeny, a few teaspoons for some of the face lotions, and then you're wasting a lot of space. So what I've done is take little baggies and I double bag things, and I take a little baggie and I label it with the lotion that I have in that bag. Doesn't work so well with oils, but the other things that I've used. I just put them in baggies, like sandwich bags, and then seal them tight. And instead, because then you can carry on, because women use a lot of different lotions, right? I do tend to use a lot of different lotions, on my face and everything. And 2 ounces of each is far more than I'll ever need in a week. So, I just use little baggies. Also, I lock my luggage. even when I'm carrying it. Backpacks need to be locked, otherwise you could be stolen from. Um, and hiding your valuables when you're walking, and I don't leave valuables in the hotel. In fact, I don't even take a lot of valuables with. Period. I tend to just travel very light. I don't, if I can go without my computer, I go without my computer. I try not to have a computer with while I'm traveling. It's just one more thing that can get stolen, right? But if you're traveling for work, it really can't be avoided. So that's pretty tough. But I try to just take my, maybe my phone and load as much as I can on my phone, but keep that separate. You can even take a dummy phone with you just to have something that somebody can steal, and that doesn't hurt you. Um, and I don't have a dummy phone now, but some people do have a dummy phone and a dummy wallet. Um, and the biggest thing is packing light. Though, you know, every step along the way, the more stuff you have with you, if something happens, it's more stuff to carry with you or decide whether to leave it, right? So if you see somebody who looks dangerous, can you leave quickly, right? If you have just a backpack or a small bag, you can move much more quickly than if you have a large suitcase. So in order to do that, I tend to carry laundry sheets instead of all this extra clothes, right? I try to minimize the amount of clothes that I wear, and I take laundry sheets. And those laundry sheets, you can just get them off of Amazon or whatever, and that way you can pack very lightly, and still be able to wash your clothes in the hotel. So it takes little bit longer to dry clothes in a hotel. So you generally only want to wash something if you know that you're going to be there at least for 48 hours, because it seems to take that long to dry. At least until the point that it's wearable. I mean, you can wear something when it's damp, but you don't necessarily want to pack something when it's damp. So if it's a little bit damp, you could just wear it and it'll dry on your body. Unless it's really cold out, you might not want to do that. But if it's actually really cold out, it's usually dry air as well. So yeah, and it and taking another copy of your passport and your driver's license, just make a copy of them in case the real one gets stolen, because that can prevent you from getting on the plane if if your real driver's license gets stolen, if your real passport gets stolen. So just take a copy of it, piece of paper, and take those with as well. But of course, keep those in a separate area than your real one. Um, yeah, and I always try to make sure that the plane leaves and lands at a reasonable time. Sometimes it's better to travel overnight than it is to travel during the day, because if you travel during the day, sometimes you leave early in the morning. Like, sometimes abductions tend to happen. Drew Shadeen got kidnapped at like 5:30 in the morning. I think it was like 5:30. She was a famous kidnapping when I was younger. And So you don't want to be out too early if you can avoid it, and you don't want to be out too late. So sunrise to sunset are generally the times that I try to time it to be out. It's not a foolproof way, but it's definitely a good thing to shoot for. And of course, landing well before sunset so you can get to the hotel and be in your hotel room before sunset is ideal. And then I don't sleep a lot. If you're a person that doesn't sleep a lot, like me, then you can get up early in the morning. Usually I'm up and out of the hotel. When the sun is getting up, I'm already dressed and ready to go to maximize the number of time that I can spend out enjoying my vacation in that new area while the sun is up. If you take a long time or if you sleep in, that's going to be a problem because you have to get to bed. You have to get back to the hotel before sunset if you want to be safe. There's different countries that are safe versus more dangerous. China is one of the more safe countries for women. They have a lot of cameras around. They have a lot of, they have a different culture. The government does censor a lot of things, so they don't always get the toxic video streaming that the Americans or other countries might get. So that does make them safer. And Yeah, these are some of my tips. And look, if you have any questions about it, I have been solo traveling for quite some time. I do enjoy traveling alone. In my experience, it's been better than being with a companion. Generally, in my experience, having a male companion kind of has ruined the trip for me a lot of times, just because they might yell at me, or they take me into dangerous areas, or they drink the local water, which is, I think everybody knows by now not to drink the local water, but some people like to think that they're different. And I've had that experience where he got really, really sick, and it was because he didn't avoid the local water. And so, you know, I would say, um, if you, it's not about local water being bad. It can be, but it's often about it being different. We have our own toxins, and, in our water in the United States. Even state to state can be very different. And when you're on vacation, you're getting exposed to a lot of bacteria, a lot of viruses as you travel. And to add on to that, different water can be an overload for the system. And so that can make you sick on a vacation. So just wherever you are, if you're traveling, I tend to drink bottled water no matter if I travel out of the state. I'm going to drink bottled water. If I travel anywhere in the United States, I drink bottled water. If I travel outside of the United States, I drink bottled water, just because I've known too many people that get, that travel sickness. I think is largely attributable to just drinking local water, no matter how safe they say it is. Just being different can cause undue stress on your stomach and can cause flu-like symptoms. And I've heard too many people getting, even just going to Europe, which you'd think would be really safe, they get, stomach flu type symptoms, as well as really bad diarrhea, which, not not as enjoyable, to have a vacation like that. So that's another thing that I would advise, is just spend a couple extra bucks so that you can actually, enjoy the vacation that you spent thousands of dollars to go on. Um, yeah, and they talk about knowing your surroundings and walking confidently. Well, yes, do a lot of research. I do a lot of research before I go anywhere, so that nothing is like, "Ooh, never seen that before." You wanna kind of, mellow that out a little bit. It's not that everybody's bad, but that there's bad people everywhere you go, so you have to be really cautious. Um, of course, always carry your purse, crossbody, and, I cut my hair off just to be a little bit more safe. Of course, I didn't cut it, I actually went to the barber. And, yeah, and then, I think that's all the tips I can think of for now. Um, Sometimes you can look online and see, and just look on blogs. And also, if you're going out of the country, there's a STEP program with the United States government that you can log your trip, where you're going, where you'll be, and when you're arriving back. And you can just put that with the US government so that that they know, and then have all the US Embassy, contact information on your phone. And of course, ways to contact them. One of the problems is that, China does censor, which is a good thing. They protect their citizens from a lot of the harmful content that we get in the United States. But on the other hand, that can cause some problems for travelers that are trying to communicate with loved ones back in the States that are on censored platforms. Like, um, I think pretty much everything I have is under Google, you know? So how do you how do you communicate if you don't have Google? So you have to like try to plan that out ahead of time. You can get some WeChat or something like that, or um, other programs, or maybe a VPN. I always try to respect the customs and understand the reasons why countries are with the way they are. I think, when in Rome, do as the Romans. So it's not like I'm going to be doing anything wrong when I travel. If I you know When I've gone to China, I love China. I think if you've watched my channel at all, you kind of got that drift. I love China. I think that no country is perfect, but they are pretty awesome. And just the safety and concern that they have for their citizens. You may not agree with everything that they've done, but I do like the fact that they do have a protective stance for their citizens. And that is one of the reasons why I love them, is that they haven't been exposed to a lot of the things that we are exposed to on a daily basis. The hate that we get online, which humans are humans. It's not like they're just, sending out hugs and, I go to China and everybody's just going to be hugging me. I'm not saying that, but I think there's a lot less hostility. Um, and uh, and so, when you're there, I do try to respect the local customers as much as possible. And I try to learn some of the language just to show them that I respect them. And I just tested at HSK 4. If you know Mandarin, the levels are, HSK 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I think they go up to 8 now. I think they just changed the test to go all the way up to 8. So I'm at 4. So I'm halfway to fluent, which is not fluent at all, but I do pick up on things, and that helps. And I use Super Chinese. I think that is the best language learning app for Chinese. Um, so learning some of the language can be helpful, especially if you need to communicate a little bit, figure out what you need to say and practice it. Google Translate is really awesome, but again, that's not usable when you are in China unless you have a VPN. And so, but, rehearsing a few phrases. If you're going to go somewhere, you know, knowing a couple phrases that are relevant to the situation is very helpful. Just an understanding what a receipt is, or 多少钱, how much is this, and understanding the numbers, right? That is all very helpful. Um, yeah, and so, I get excited about solo female travel. It's the way of the world, right? We don't always, if I could find a good guy that I was interested in, totally, I would totally be in a relationship, but I am done looking because I've been hurt too many times. I mean, if guys want to change this, they got to really stop, changing. They got to change the culture that disregards women, that makes women so traumatized just by dating. And of course, we always date the good guy, and I can guarantee you that every guy that has abused me, that has cheated on me, that has mistreated me, every single one of them walks around today thinking they're one of the good guys. Okay. So just because you're one of the good guys doesn't actually mean you're one of the good guys. So, I have not found that. So I'm not going to stop living. I'm going to keep living and enjoying my life. But you have to use some common sense, and it's not actually common sense. A lot of this stuff actually takes a lot to figure out. Um, like travel insurance. You want to have travel insurance so that you have health insurance when you're abroad, right? Um, yeah, because if you are abroad and something happens and you have to go to the hospital, your insurance might not cover it. So for a couple weeks of travel health insurance, it's probably going to cost you about $50. And that's not bad. And so you'll want to print that out and keep that with you, because if you bought travel insurance right before you left, you're not going to get any proof other than what you got on the internet, right? So just print that out and bring it with you. And yeah, I hope some of this helps. Stay safe out there, be alert, do things that are, group travel. Solo female travel doesn't mean that you don't join a group. There's a lot of different travel agencies that are just groups of people, and you can do it for a pretty reasonable price. Sometimes even no more expensive than if you went all by yourself, because they get discounts, they get deals, they know where to go, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's not even more expensive. Now you're going to have to still do some solo travel getting from the airport where you land to where the group is meeting sometimes, or they're going to pick you up at the hotel. How do you know who's going to pick you up, right? So it's not going to eliminate all danger, but it can really make things a lot better. So yeah, you can do some of the group travel. I don't do group travel. It's very rare that I actually do group travel, just because it doesn't always align with my work schedule. Because group travel is often on, this is when we're leaving, this is when the trip is. And I'm like, well, I have a big project that day, or that week or that month or whatever. It just never seems to align. But occasionally, I'll use the group travel. And, I'll try to find some good recommendations too of group travel. But sometimes, even when you just land in the hotel, what I've done when I traveled in Florida is that I just found not tour agencies, like just um, you know events, or so when I went to the Everglades, I I just I landed I found Everglades, and there was just businesses along the Everglades that took people on little tours through the Everglades, that type of thing, so that you're not actually ever alone. Other than, I had to go get the rental car and I had to go to the hotel alone. But once I drove out there, I went to the Everglades with a group and a tour guide, and that was awesome. You'll always get a few looks like people, what is she doing here all alone? Cares? You know what I mean? Who cares? That's their problem. If they want to have to, think about what you're doing and, judging, that's not your problem. That's their problem. That's their mess that they going on in there. Just do it. Just enjoy your life. Enjoy stuff, be safe, and but you don't have to stay in a prison, right? And of course, I do not drink alone in public, right? That's kind of a um, that will kind of set you up for a lot of hazard. I might have a glass of wine if it's noon and I'm on vacation, or even early evening, but I'm not going to have more than that. And even that is pretty rare. What's the point? Just because you don't want to be in danger at all. And of course, I would never leave a drink on a table, go to the bathroom, and come back. I'll drink it while I'm there, while I'm sitting there, and I'll probably sit in a booth. I prefer a booth. They tend to be a little bit more sheltered. If anybody's going to drop a roofie, it's going to be a little hard when I'm sitting in a booth. you know, so taking precautions like that, just being aware, right, that there really are people out there that are out to get you. And don't accept any pamphlets from anybody. Never accept a booklet from somebody. You don't know what it's laced with. So if somebody's trying to hand you a pamphlet, say no, 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 don't touch it. Don't touch that pamphlet. Don't touch any freebies that you get from people. Never touch them. You don't know what it's laced with. And yes, that does happen, right? Um, yeah, I got to get going. I have a busy day, but I hope some of this is helpful. All right, thanks. Bye.